Hello, and welcome to another episode of Nerds Now Playing, where we talk about all things nerdy, including movies, video games, and entertainment. This is being recorded, of course, at our Feely Creative Podcast Studio in Salina, Kansas. I am your host today, Devin, and joining me today is
Tim Burns. Hey, how's it going, guys?
Hey, Tim Burns. We have made it. We had a little hiatus last week, but
We
we're
did,
back. We're
unfortunately.
back with a new episode.
Yes, we are.
A little more refreshed, maybe, but I don't know. It's been a busy week for us,
Yeah,
but
it has been.
we still have found time to do some things in our free time
Oh, yeah.
and watch some stuff, play some stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And I think this last maybe 2 weeks since we've been gone, we have been busy in our free time with a certain game release that just came out.
Yes. Yes, we
Yes.
have. And that release would be Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, which came out last weekend. And I know you haven't had a chance to really dive too much into it, which is a clever pun for those who have played the game where you can actually dive through the air.
That's right. I'm a solid 2.5 hours into the game.
Rookie.
Yeah, it feels very rookie because those 2.5 hours are also sporadically sporadic throughout the week because I've been so busy. But
Yeah.
but what are some of your initial thoughts? It's been a while since we've played the game, and I know seeing the trailers, I wasn't necessarily blown away until the final trailer that was released leading up to the release of the game. Um, but then when I saw that final trailer, I got really excited again about it, and um, because Nintendo was just showing little snippets of gameplay in here and there, and that was all well and good. But I wanted to know more about the story or what's changed since Breath of the Wild. Which
Right.
Breath of the Wild, real quick, is one of my favorite Zelda games. I don't know about yourself.
I like a lot about Breath of the Wild, but it's not. I don't think it is my top by any means, and that's because, um, well, it breaks a lot of conventions about the like traditional Zelda stuff. Because like now you can actually, jump. I mean, granted, you could technically in Link's Awakening and a little bit in Majora's Mask, but those were specific abilities to those games. Like you can jump, you can now like climb almost everything, which that's pretty unique to that game. Just in general, like of all game stuff like that, I don't really know another game where you can just connect with almost anything.
Yeah, and I want to mention that I know I asked your thoughts about Tears of the Kingdom, but we will get to that. I want to make sure you say what your thoughts are of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, Breath of the Wild, it's probably my top three Zelda games, I think, but it's probably being my number three maybe because I have. But Breath of the Wild came out after Skyward Sword in terms of the 3D Zelda releases.
Yes.
Um, on the Wii, right? Yes. Yeah, it came. Skyward Sword initially released on the Wii.
That one did. I think it was also on. It might have also released on game. No, it was Twilight Princess. I think it was just on the Wii, and then it was re-released recently on the Switch.
Yep, it had a HD remake, which I bought but have not played.
I played it.
And because so Skyward Sword is one of my least favorite 3D Zelda games.
I like aspects of that one too. They try so hard to shoe in the motion controls, which is something else they did with Breath of the Wild that I don't think any fans were like that happy about. Because like, yeah, it's cool, but
could you use motion controls to swing your sword though?
In Skyward Sword, yes.
Skyward Sword, yeah.
Yeah. Not in Breath of the Wild. No.
There was some motion controls.
Well, maybe. I think the motion controls in Breath of the Wild were more so tied to like certain shrines because they had that like ones you had to operate with that.
Some puzzles and things like that. With Skyward Sword, that gameplay mechanic was swinging the Wii remote, and I did not overall care for that. The novelty of that kind of wore off a little bit, and there was
after a while your arm just gets tired.
It does get tired. I mean, you don't have to do large gestures with your arm to make the sword swing or not, but it's still like I'd just rather hit a button and just move on.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in playing the HD remake of it because it has regular controls.
Yeah, so
it's part of it now too.
In that version, you just like flick the joystick in the direction that you want it to go, and it was weird kind of starting off with that, but it feels pretty regular by the time the game goes on. As far as like Breath of the Wild, I like a lot about it. I love the graphics. I think it's a nice visual update on the series. I like a lot of the gameplay mechanics. Where I think that one fails is primarily lack of story. Or it feels like there's a lack of story because there's like everything is told through these memories that you have to go and collect. So if you fail to do that, then you don't get the entire thing, which kind of sucks. And then the lack of traditional Zelda dungeons, which like they tried to break convention, which is nice, but at the same time, I think a lot of us fans are there for we like those dungeons. We want to experience that.
Uh-huh.
So it was kind of sad to not have that there. And then also, I I know a lot of people had problems with the durability, weapon durability. I didn't think it was necessarily that big of an issue because there's always another weapon lying around. Um, Now, as far as Tears of the Kingdom goes, since I've had a chance to put in more hours than you have, so far I'm really liking it. I think visually it just looks absolutely stunning. I mean, it's not necessarily different that way from Breath of the Wild, but the different environments are just gorgeous to look at. I mean, you start off in these sky islands, which just it's a completely different environment, and there are different enemies. And I mean, you haven't made it down to Hyrule yet, but the landscape has changed a little. There are different things on the map. I mean, you can still visit certain locations from Breath of the Wild, and you will find different things there.
Yeah, and I do think it's really cool when you revisit a thing
Hmm.
because in Breath of the Wild too, they had it wasn't like 1-to-1 on locations from like Ocarina of Time,
Oh
but they had
yeah, but there were some like Lon Lon Ranch shows up.
little remnants of this and
Hmm.
that. And I like those little callbacks or it makes it feel like there's like a bit of history there or something
Yeah,
like that. Um, and yeah, I haven't played much Tears of the Kingdom, but so far I do like when I was playing it, like it is the Switch is very old. Like it's getting kind of long in the
yeah.
tooth. And
Well, that's
I
what 6 years.
came out 2016. So if you it
Oh wow,
depends.
so it's almost been a decade.
Well, it's getting close to that. Yes, yeah, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21.
Well,
So I mean, it's been out for 7 calendar years, I guess, but actually, it's like 6.5 years old, maybe or six
mhm,
years. I don't know. I don't know how you would want to
either way.
count the years of its being around, but it's been out since 2016 and it's running on older hardware because it's using the Tegra X1 chip, I think,
Mm.
and so which was old at the time. It was like a generation behind when that was
Oh
released, I
wow,
think, because then or the Tegra X2 chip came out not too long after that,
gotcha.
and was a large leap in
Hmm.
power from that, but in terms of the mobile, because that's a mobile graphics card and stuff
Oh,
like that.
gotcha.
But I don't know enough about that to actually talk about it. But given the fact that it's an old hardware,
Hmm.
and I'm ready for a Switch refresh, I did I think the game is pretty beautiful and like it looks pretty. I love the art style. The colors pop so well, and
Yeah,
it
that
feels
cell shading.
uh huh. I mean, sure, some of the textures are kind of low res in some areas and stuff, but I really don't notice it overall.
Yeah, I don't either.
Because the art style in this game really complements this, and in Breath of the Wild really complements the world and that stuff.
Hmm.
Skyward Sword did more of a painterly look to kind of hide some of the details in
Yeah.
it. And when I look at that now, it just kind of looks like a blurry
Mm.
mess that doesn't quite like they said they were going to do this painterly look,
Yeah.
but what they're really doing is using that to obscure some of the details in the background, so the Wii didn't have to render all that in full
That
detail.
makes sense.
And so that was kind of their excuse, I guess, maybe for that. But here in Tears of the Kingdom, like it just looks so good, and I obviously haven't played that much of the game, but I'm already liking the setup with the story and
Hmm.
things like that. You mentioned Breath of the Wild; they had memories, and that's a kind of like storytelling format that I don't love
Yeah.
per se. I like stories to be forward progressing,
Hmm.
and when you dip into things like flashbacks or something like that, it's just not as interesting to me.
Yeah.
Maybe some movies have done it well, like Memento or something like that. But so I did think the story was weak in Breath of the Wild, but so
Hmm.
far the setup in Tears of the Kingdom is pretty strong. I think
Oh yeah,
I'm
definitely.
enjoying it.
And I will say, like, so it does look like there are some memories in the new in Tears. I don't necessarily know that it's like a main story mechanic. The only reason I know because I went to a certain location, and I don't want to ruin what I did or where I went for use in case you stumble upon it yourself. But I did get a memory out of going to that. So, but I don't think it's a major mechanic necessarily of the game because so most of the time that I have spent in the game right now has mostly been uh, just exploration
Yeah.
and doing shrines. And I will say, like, I like the shrines in this game so much more than the ones in Breath of the Wild. And that has majorly to do with the new mechanics and new abilities you have. So the main ones that we have, like, we have Ultra Hand, which basically allows you to pick up basically almost anything, and you can attach things together using that.
Yeah.
And then in addition to that, there is probably the next most useful, which is the fuse ability, and that's primarily for weaponry. So you have like the weapon durability is very much a thing, and it's actually even more so in this game because like due to they refer to it as the upheaval in the game, kind of this return of Ganon or whatever this creepy stuff that's happening is basically kind of affected like all metals and like all weaponry is just like kind of rusting away. So which you'll find out when you get down to the main world. So it's not really that much of a spoiler. But so you use the fuse ability to mostly on weapons and your shields as well. So you can attach a rock on the end of a thing or use it with your arrows. Like you can attach bombs or other things like the those big blobs, the choo-choos. You get like the choo-choo jellies every time. So you can attach those to the end of your arrows as well. So like if you fight like an electric one, you can shoot that at an enemy. So like those abilities, I think, make this gameplay a lot more exciting, a lot more creative, and just it allows you to use your imagination a lot more. And you've already used it in like way different means than I have. Like to me, I see like a clear way forward on certain things. Where like, okay, they clearly want me to do this. So I'm like, not that I don't have enough imagination to try things on my own.
Are you talking about the hook going down the rail
Maybe
thing?
Well, because to me, it just made sense to like make a platform and then like put the hook on it, and it's like, okay, this is like a clear path forward for me to do it this way. And like you're not the only person. Like I've seen other people who are like they clearly want us to do it this way. I'm gonna try it this way just to see if I can do it.
Well, you have to fuse like these hook things to a board and then make it go down a rail. And so I think I did it more I didn't think of it as simplistically as you did. I need to not overcomplicate it so much, but I set it up and then it just went down the rail without me on it. Like I set it up perfectly and was like, oh, proud of it. But then it started slowly moving and then went down. It's like, oh. And then I was left with less resources to work with. Right. So I had to like make a herky-jerky platform and it started to work, except then I fell and died. But it is kind of neat, this different ways it makes you think about stuff. It's been pretty cool.
Yeah, and that's why I like the shrines a lot in this one, because it forces you to look at. I mean, one of the biggest things about the Legend of Zelda series is not only just like the adventure like hack and slash part of it, but it heavily involves puzzles, and that's what the shrines are. Like you have to kind of think through what the next step is and how to do that. And with these new abilities, it just makes it way more interesting to me, because like you have to kind of think outside the box that you normally would like. Oh, okay, this is how I could do it. And like one of the abilities you will get, and it's one they showed in the trailers, is this reverse time ability thing. And like I've seen like videos of other players using it really interestingly, but like I was using it. I was doing a shrine yesterday, and whether or not they meant for me to use it in that way, there's like these couple blocks that you could climb up, and then there's these giant metal cubes that you can't climb. But what I could do is use the two to get onto this other platform and shift the other one over here and pull it up, and then reverse time, and then move it back over here, and then reverse time on that so it comes back up here so I can get onto it and then get to this other section. And so like that's really unique. It's really fun. And one of the other cool things about this one is there are a lot of you can you can build pretty much whatever your mind comes up with. I've seen some really insane things online. I mean,
a lot of weird structures, and things that border on inappropriate,
Yeah, yeah, we're thinking of the same one.
but but why? I mean, it did not take long for someone to come up with that genius,
Oh no, not
like
at all.
creation of art.
It is glorious. No, there's like I've seen people like build like almost like a full like mech suit almost in the game, and like it is insane. Like there are just the different zonai materials and like constructs that you get is just nuts. And like it really is all about like whatever you can think of to build, and that comes with like later on in the game you can start kind of building vehicles and other things, and so it's it's a really interesting game. I'm excited to start kind of. I feel like I'm at a point now in my playthrough where I can start progressing the main story because I feel like because as you've kind of experienced, 3 hearts is nothing in this game.
Yeah, and I'm still at 3 hearts myself, and well, Link's just eating a lot of I'm eating a lot of apples.
Yeah, well, you kind of have to because like I feel like it's more so in this game. Maybe I didn't experience it as much in Breath of the Wild, but like there's a lot of the enemy types that can just straight up one shot you at that level. And so like I've made a point to that's part of the reason why I'm also like exploring so much and doing all these shrines is to kind of like build myself up a little bit. So I've gotten myself to the point where I have 2 full stamina rings, like the original one and then one
Oh,
extra one.
nice. That's helpful.
And then I have like 8 hearts. And I just completed like 4 more shrines this week. So I can either do another container, a heart container or stamina vessel.
It still lets you choose between those two then?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Which I find it kind of useful. So one of my buddies who's a huge Zelda fan as well, we both agree to kind of go into it as like mostly as blind as possible. But his view is that it's kind of best to like start like at least in early game, kind of building up your stamina and then focusing on hearts, at least up to a certain point. Because like I was at like 4 hearts for a while. Like once you descend into Hyrule, you'll have 4 hearts, and just getting one shot, like I had to give myself a couple extra.
Well, plus when you like, I've been running away from enemies.
You kinda have to.
And then you run out of stamina.
Yeah.
And then you're like slowly trudging along, and then they're creeping up on you behind you, and it's like it's not a scary game, I don't think.
No, but it gives you the sense of anxiety.
It gives me anxiety too. So that's probably a good tip of getting some more stamina.
Yeah.
From my point of view, because I think I can avoid getting hit pretty good. I just want to run away.
Oh yeah, definitely, and that's what I've kind of been doing a little bit here and there. And then one thing you'll definitely want to do early game, you'll notice that similar to Breath of the Wild, you don't start off with the paraglider. It is in this game.
Yeah.
So, and it's still a main traversal technique.
Yeah, I can't wait to get it, actually.
So, yeah, it's so, oh my gosh, it's so helpful.
Yeah, I'm really used to like, because me and my friend play Warzone a lot, and obviously a very different game. But anytime you jump off a high building or something in that game, you can redeploy a parachute.
Oh, nice.
And so that's just what I expect in all games now, kind of.
They do. They have a similar function in Fortnite, but it's in the form of like an augment. So like you have to. It's called aerialist. So like if you happen to be lucky enough to get that one pop up, then like it's such a better traversal. Saying like you can get away so much faster. It's so nice. As far as like so far, I'm really loving Tears of the Kingdom. I like it's kind of consuming.
Yeah.
My life a little bit. Like I'm kind of burning the candle at both ends a little bit here.
Yeah, I think I'm hoping in the coming weekend we'll have an extended weekend with Memorial Day coming up, and
oh yeah,
and I'm hoping to get some good time in there. And I am wondering how much game, like, because you said you've been doing a lot of exploring.
I've been doing a lot of exploring,
and
yeah.
I bet, like, from what I've seen and from playing Breath of the Wild, like, I just start going around somewhere, go find a forest or do some maybe a couple shrines, but then like 3 hours have gone by, and then it's like, did I actually do anything?
Oh yeah, that's what it feels like to me right now. Like I've mostly been uncovering the map as well. Like that's kind of like my main thing. Like I like going to the different towers, and like it gives me a sense of like completion. Like okay, I can see all of this now. So if I need to go somewhere, I know where it's at, and I can just like I maybe it's a point of like I just want to like once I get into the main story, I just want to travel faster. So like by unlocking those things, I can just fast travel near that area and get that done. So maybe that's part of it for me. I will say another thing this has going for it, more varied enemy types.
Yeah, and I've already sensed that in my little gameplay
Hmm.
through.
I mean, there's the Zonai constructs, but there's more down below. I mean, in Hyrule, like there's some
Uh-huh.
extra ones. Like there's not just moblins. I mean, the or bokoblins, which have changed a little bit, but there are ones that are like harder to fight. That like if you like they can easily one shot you, but like I don't want to ruin the surprise of certain enemies. It's like
Uh-huh.
I was a buddy of mine came across them and like he like sent me a text immediately going just talking about like what the hell like
Uh,
what are these here. So it's just really kind of been fun and like seeing these things that like sometimes I've legit just like run away from the area because like I know I can't handle it right now.
uh-huh. Well,
Um,
that's really exciting to know. I didn't really feel the lack of enemy variety so much in Breath of the Wild, but I
mm,
did. Every boss you kind of fight in Breath of the Wild is kind of like a form of Ganon or
yeah.
something, and so that I was kind of hoping for more diversity
Hmm.
in because the bosses are like usually a big main feature of Zelda games. You get to the dungeon, get through it, and then you have the big bad boss to get
Yeah,
through.
and they're all usually pretty unique, but yeah.
So, but I have seen some good variety already,
Hmm.
even though I haven't left uh, the first area.
Oh yeah.
But I will. I just need like a solid 3 hours with the game, to feel like uninterrupted.
Yeah.
Because
Well, yeah, I mean you've got I think two more shrines on the Sky Islands before you can descend down to Hyrule.
yeah,
But I mean there's more to explore there too. And there's so many more Sky Islands to get to. It's really fun. I will say so as far as like just the Legend of Zelda franchise in general. My buddies and I were we were online last night a little bit together, watching some episodes of JoJo's. But before that, they were talking about when I joined into the chat. They were talking about which one of us was like the ultimate like Zelda fan, or like how many games they'd played.
uh-huh.
And so I went through my list, and of the four of us, I have played the most. I've played 10 Zelda games
Okay.
because I played the original Legend of Zelda, Zelda 2. I played Link to the Past, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Wind Waker, uh, Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword, Breath of the Wild, and Link's Awakening, the remaster. Because I haven't had a chance to play many of the handheld ones,
Yep.
unfortunately.
Yep. So I've played all those, but then I've also played the
Well, I should say those are all ones I beat.
okay. Oh. Because I haven't beat Zelda 2. That game was just I was gonna try it again on Nintendo Online because you can have save states and that.
I don't
And
think I would have made it through if I didn't have save
yeah,
states.
I think I tried it when the Nintendo Classic came out, but I don't know. I fell off of it, I guess. But uh, Zelda 2 was the first Zelda game I actually technically played.
Oh,
My parents used to own a video rental store. Uh, growing up, but when they closed that, they had some games
mhm.
left over. But Zelda 2 was one of them, and it was a very intriguing game because it was in a gold it was in a gold cartridge,
Oh yeah.
and so I like to pop it in every once in a while. But that game is like really hard. So
Uh-huh.
that was my idea of Zelda is like it's this hard game, and I didn't like it because
It
it's so difficult.
it's kind of the black sheep of the Zelda family because like, I will say the rest of the series owes a lot to that game. Um, because it's kind of like that one really has like some of Link's signature moves come from that game.
Yeah, and you see that in Ocarina of Time.
Mm.
Like there's even a part in Ocarina of Time when if an enemy hits you, Link jumps backwards.
Oh yeah.
But that position he is in is the same as Link's Adventure 2. When
Mhm.
he like I think dies, he does a little death
Oh
animation.
yeah.
So there's a little nod to that. But yeah, there's like and magic is introduced in the
Oh
franchise
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
and some other elements. So I've gotten through like the first what do you call them dungeons or in that game or something.
I think there are palaces in that
The
one.
first couple palaces, but
Yeah.
then I've stopped after that because the game is hard.
It's definitely hard. I will say I also used a little bit of a when I used a bit of a guide because one of the harshest things about that game is that uh, in addition to no save states, you only get a certain amount of lives, and if you use up all of those lives, you have to restart the entire game. So that's why like playing like I think now is the definitive time to play that
Uh-huh.
unless you're a hardcore purist and want that challenge. More power to you. But so there are like different like Link figurines or dolls throughout the game that are hidden.
Uh-huh.
If you get those, they give you an extra life. So like I had to find a guide to
Mm.
tell me where those things were.
Well, I hope you have an opportunity to play the handheld ones.
I do really
Sometime.
want to play Minish Cap.
I
I keep hearing good things about that
and
one.
I think it's on Nintendo Online right now.
Yes, I think that one is, as well as the original or the Game Boy Color version of Link's Awakening, which I also kind of want to play because I've only played the remastered one that came out on the Switch.
And the Oracle games are really good.
Oh yeah, those are on there too. I really want to play those. I've heard good things.
I liked them at least. They consider Oracle of Ages to be the better one, but
Mm.
because it has better puzzles
Well,
and
because like one of them focuses on puzzles more, one focuses on combat more,
yeah, a
right?
little bit. Yeah.
Okay, like those ones I want to play. So that pretty much leaves Spirit Tracks, Phantom Hourglass, and Link Between Worlds.
Yeah.
I think, or is like the other three. I guess there's also Four Swords, but that was really like that one really requires you to have people to play with.
Yeah, and there's a couple versions of Four Swords, and I don't remember them. I remember the first Four Swords that came out. There was like a GameCube game, and you could use your Game Boy Advances and link up to the GameCube.
Oh yeah, I've heard about that.
Which I have played through that because one of my friends happened to have the copy, and we all had the link cables, and we made it work somehow. I couldn't do it now. I don't have the game now, but
Oh dang.
that was my friend who had it. But that was kind of a cool experience because like if on the screen, all four of you could be on the screen doing fighting or doing a dungeon, but if one of you went down underground, then you would have to use your Game Boy Advance to then look at the screen.
Oh really?
'Cause then like underground,
You'd be separated.
you'd be separated.
Oh.
So but then you'd have to like, and I think I don't remember if everyone could join together on the same Game Boy Advance screen, but you had to work together to solve puzzles because it required four links to move things or fight a step on the right like
That was
things.
at the right time.
So that was that was a really fun game. I haven't played any Four Swords since then. There's been a couple that have been a part of like Game Boy releases, like Minish Cap I think has a Four Swords
I think
thing part of it.
so.
Unless that's what you use to play the GameCube one. I don't remember.
Maybe.
It's
I know I think there's like two different Four Swords adventure ones, and like I want to play those, but at the same because I think they have made it so that you can play it single player, but it's harder.
and then there's a game I think called Triforce Heroes,
I
which
guess
I've not
is,
experienced.
is that one of the newer ones that's like a main hack and slash? It's just like a bunch of like a
Couldn't tell you.
well, there's Age of Calamity that came out. Like oh no that's Hyrule Warriors is what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
about.
that's Hyrule Warriors, which I own one of them, but I haven't played.
Apparently, according to one of my friends, that one has a lot of extra backstory for like Breath of the Wild that you just don't get if you don't unless you play those games. And like those ones, what do you call those type of games? Because it's just like an endless wave.
Oh yeah, there's a type of game for that. Maybe I could look it up here. Hyrule Warriors.
Because I don't remember. Because like I know in that one, like one of the things that intrigues me about those games is that you get is the different people you can play as. So you don't only play as Link, but you can play as the main spirits or whatever they are from Breath of the Wild. The other ones that were with Link.
Well, and real quick, the Hyrule Warriors is considered this is hack and slash action game, but it's from the Dynasty Warriors team,
Okay.
and so it's like a Dynasty Warriors style hack and slash.
Okay. So I wasn't far off with hack and slash. But so like I like that you can play as the different like main heroes from Breath of the Wild that are just kind of background characters. And apparently you can play as Zelda as well, and she has some pretty neat abilities. So like I'm interested in that, but I feel like as like the combat just seems like very the same the entire time. So like that just doesn't really interest me as a game player.
Yeah, it's the kind of game like if you like just fighting large hordes of enemies and the sense that I haven't played it, but it looks like it has some fun, but it probably isn't a great 8+ hour game to just do all the time. But I haven't tried it yet. So
I do think the sequel involves more of the entire franchise. Because I think it goes into like different dimensions and stuff. Well, dimensions as in like the other worlds. But yeah, well, I do think it's about time we get into our movie review today.
That is true. I think it is time for us to take a break. Is it break time?
It is break time.
And then we'll come back for our review, which is today, The Fly, David Cronenberg's The Fly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're back with Nerds Now Playing. We're going to be reviewing The Fly, David Cronenberg's The Fly, which came out in
That's
1986,
right.
a year before I was born. So I'm not The Fly baby.
Not yet, but someday.
I am a The Predator baby.
Oh, are you? You came out the same year as the Predator?
Yep,
That's why your face looks so messed up.
I am the Predator. Uh,
That's an. I hate to inform you, but that's an unfortunate title.
yep, that's true.
Um,
I always associate 1986 with aliens, by the way.
oh, good choice.
So The Fly we're reviewing today. Let me read the synopsis about
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
We'll get in and talked about it. An eccentric scientist wants to change the world with his teleportation technology. When his experiment seems to be going well, Dr. Seth Brundle tests his machine on himself and gets fused with the worst kind of pest on planet Earth and begins to transform into a giant man/fly hybrid after one of his experiments goes horribly wrong.
Yes, I'm really excited to talk about this movie. Actually,
So this is directed by David Cronenberg with
hmm
makeup by Chris Wallace, who I learned a lot more about because of this movie. There's other makeup artists like Baker
oh yeah, yeah.
and some in other studios, I guess, Stan Winston and some other things. But so I learned a little bit about Chris Wallace.
Which, by the way, it's either Wallace or Wallace. I'm not really sure. Because I was watching an interview with Jeff Goldblum, who's also in this movie as the main star, and he said Wallace, but he actually won an Oscar for the makeup in this movie.
Really,
Yeah, it was the only award they were nominated for that year, but he did win for it, which is, I mean, and deservedly so, because the makeup job in this movie is fantastic.
it is pretty good. Because they had to make the Fly look like Jeff Goldblum, and I think they did a really convincing job.
I mean, and it goes to
I'm
different
saying that as a
stages.
joke. Like,
Well, despite that, like this is a movie where, so this is 1986. There wasn't necessarily a lot of compute. I mean, they weren't really using computers still for like makeup or like CGI. And I think that's for the better, because like the practical effects in this movie are really good. And like, so the version of this that we watched this on HBO,
yes, we
and
did.
like the print that they have is so crisp.
Yeah.
It, like we were commenting while we were watching, like it's very clear, it's very nice. And this movie, oh man, it is it's a journey.
So I had you seen this movie before? You've seen this movie?
I had it had been several years since I've watched. I think I watched it maybe when I was in college or potentially the end of high school.
I had seen large chunks of it, but I don't think I have ever seen it from beginning to end. At least I really don't think so.
Was this one that you just like saw on TV in passing?
I probably, because there was moments in the end of the movie that I do recall. I do remember, but I don't know. So it was really fun for me to watch this because from beginning to end, just get the actual experience of the Fly in.
Yeah, yeah.
So and this is kind of like 80s movies that I really love. Like the Terminator has a lot of practical effects. It has these elements of horror and gore. And The Thing came out, which was
Yes.
1982. The Thing's practical effects heavy.
Which I want to talk about that movie at some point.
Okay. And gosh, there's just so many in the 80s that these kind of practical effect horror movies.
Oh yeah.
That are really fun. So I'm surprised that kind of like The Fly kind of like
Flew under the radar.
flew under the radar. Yeah, it didn't get into my zapper movie watching, but
Unfortunate.
because I like this movie. And I'll just say, like, I don't know if I've seen a ton of David Cronenberg's work, but I had recently just watched Scanners,
Oh right, yeah, yeah. You were
and
telling me about that one.
I wasn't a fan.
I haven't seen a lot of Cronenberg's work either, and which is surprising for me, because like I feel like he's someone that like is kind of out there, which is something like I generally vibe with. You know, I'm a huge David Lynch fan, and so like I have seen part of The Dead Zone, which came out prior to this movie,
Mm-hmm.
and that one is Christopher Walken and somebody else, but that's like a Stephen King adaptation, I believe. I think the main thing is like one of the characters is able to see people before
What was it called again?
the dead zone.
The Dead
I
Zone.
think he's able to see which people are about to die.
Mm.
I don't remember. I saw it in passing at my grandparents' place. They were like flipping through channels on their TV, and I think I saw part of the movie. So it's one I kind of want to look into, but I want to look into more Cronenberg's work, just because he seems like a very interesting person and very interesting director.
So then, what were some of your overall thoughts on this movie, having watched it again?
I think it holds up incredibly well. Like I said, the makeup effects are just top notch. They do a really good job. They don't look. I mean, they look disgusting, but that is not a detriment to the film. That helps a lot because he's going through these stages of this transformation, and like I don't know what I would picture those to be, but it does he just does it's such a great job of conveying what's happening to him and these different stages that he's going through. And like it's not just a physical transformation, it's a personality transformation as well. Because like I don't think they could have picked a better person to play this character than Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah, Jeff Goldblum could almost be playing himself, or
In a lot of ways.
I mean that's kind of his. It isn't his himself because Jeff Goldblum as
kind of an oddball.
is a kooky guy,
Yeah.
but in a good way. But he really captures like a scientist who is messing with this kind of stuff. He would
Yeah.
act like, I don't know, be a little bit different than everyone else. I mean, in some way, a little bit off. But
Well, I love that like you really kind of see two different versions of this character. And I think Jeff Goldblum does a fantastic job of portraying both. Because you have, at the beginning, he's such this kind of like socially awkward, like incredibly like brilliant scientist who like he just happens to kind of spill the beans about this project he's working on to Gina Davis's character, who he doesn't know at the time is a reporter. And he kind of like coaxes her into, instead of releasing the story now, which she wanted to do, to kind of following the process and like writing a book about it instead. But so like in the beginning, he's such like this kind of nice, like well-tempered person who is just kind of like, he's just dorky. And then like, after the transformation, he becomes a complete, like his personality changes. He feels, as I believe he puts it, like superior, like he feels superior because like he's physically stronger, at least for a little while. And I don't know. I just think he does a fantastic job. And I think one of the main things that you were a fan of is just the general like non-complexity of the plot.
yeah, we had, because we just watched Wakanda Forever, and that like is so plot confusing. I think if you were to like recall and explain it in detail, like so that's why it was kind of refreshing to watch this movie because it got right to the point.
Yeah.
And because with movies like this, it's a good like character study with like Jeff Goldblum's character going from kind of like secretive, he's to himself, but going to he was a little bit unhinged throughout and more aggressive, and he's like you see this difference in him. So it's kind of like an odd character study in a sense.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And when you watch a movie called The Fly, you're watching it to watch The Fly. You want to see this kind of transformation stuff, and the movie from the very get-go does not waste any time with this because he's already at a gallery, right?
It's a science convention.
Yeah, okay, a science convention with Gina Davis, reporter, and so that's convenient. And and they didn't waste any time with how they, crossed paths or whatever. They're talking. He takes her home. It's a great night for scientist Jeff Goldblum.
That's right.
Using his Jeff Goldblum isms.
And there it is.
Yeah.
No, it does a great. He just does a great job, and I think like, and it's interesting. So not only is this, I mean, the plot itself is really not that complicated. It's a guy who starts turning into this this hybrid fly man thing, and then that's the main kind of plot. But like, it's also, there's not a lot of different characters in this movie. It's Jeff Goldblum, Gina Davis, and John Getz, and that's really it.
Yeah, pretty much.
And interesting also, like, so talking about John Getz' character, he is just like complete sleazeball. This entire, I mean, I don't know anything about his career as an actor. I don't know if he plays anything different than this. But like,
he's the kind of guy you'd expect to be your ex.
yeah, really so. Well, like one of his first interests in this film, like Gina Davis comes home to her apartment and he's just showering.
He's just showering in there. Nope, don't worry about
Like he still has the key, and it's like, wow, that's such an uncomfortable move. Like, I mean, that's a power move, but not a good one. But like, so he's just a complete jerk this entire movie, but he weirdly turns into the de facto hero at the very end.
Kind of. He just wanted to shoot something, and he just had an excuse to.
That's true. So like, I don't know. It's just interesting to see him. And he, side note, he's actually the only person from this movie who makes an appearance in the sequel.
You mentioned that, and you just watched the sequel.
I did, which I'll talk about a little bit at the end. But
yeah. So some other things that stood out to me are this movie kind of has some like Frankenstein type vibes to it, and but one of the other things you mentioned it actually, a lot of the set design and the production design is actually very, very cool with the pods that they've
I love the design of the telepods. They look really neat to me, and that's something you also don't see in a lot of other movies. Like it's just it's an interesting. It's just such a different detail when you see that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I bet if this movie was made. I actually have no idea. I mean, I'm just speculating. But like another movie that is very practical effects heavy and awesome is RoboCop.
Yes.
RoboCop had a remake came out, which
sadly was PG-13.
It was very sad, But I didn't overall hate the remake of
terrible, but it could be better.
But the point is like RoboCop came out in the 80s. It has that more gritty
was very
aesthetic because I mean I think 80s movies just have that kind of things are shot on film.
Yeah, they're kind of grungy.
It's a little more grungy, but the remake of the RoboCop was a lot more pristine. Even his suit is clean.
Yeah,
and so I feel like a remake of this movie they would probably I don't know, maybe they would lean into this aesthetic again, and I would hope they would. But I could imagine them like having like these nice sterile pods or something and stuff. But that's just speculating but this movie it has that grunginess. So it seems like maybe he could have made this with his own hand, which he did. His character made it somehow. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think he contracted the parts to be made, but he assembled everything together. And I'm guessing he probably designed them, but like, you mentioned the grunginess. That's one thing that's kind of interesting. Like at the beginning of the film, and he manages to get Gina Davis's character back to his place. It's in a not so good part of town.
No,
and like
it's a red flag place.
It absolutely is. And like she looks around and it's like it's grungy and it's dirty. And like his place itself looks fine, but it's almost like a studio apartment, and like that's just like that's where he lives. That's what he does. And props to him. I will say it's a very interesting. There's an interesting bit of character development with him, or a character thing for him. He mentions in the film that he wears the same thing every day.
Oh yeah.
Which is apparently, according to his character, he picked that up from like Einstein or somebody else. So that way, like you don't have to waste your creative energy on picking what you're going to wear. If you don't have to think about it. It's just same thing. Which I kind of dig that idea.
He's kind of Mr. Rogers in that way.
Yeah. Horrifying Mr. Rogers. So I want to talk about as well. So David Cronenberg, I guess we can really start getting into more spoilery stuff now.
Yeah, I think so.
So just like a couple of fun facts. For one thing, David Cronenberg makes an appearance in this movie, and he does not often do cameos in his films, like according to the internet. There is a scene in which Gina Davis's character has a nightmare.
Yeah.
So at some point in the film, or early on, like after his first like self-test, he and Gina Davis get busy and make love after he's already the gene splicing has already happened. And so later on in the film, she has a nightmare in which she's giving birth, and out comes like this flailing larva, which is just horrifying. Like it looks horrifying. It sounds just gross. But David Cronenberg is the gynecologist or the doctor in that scene.
Yeah.
Which apparently like that scene in particular grossed Gina Davis out so much.
And I guess Gina Davis only wanted him because she felt most comfortable with
Yeah,
the
that's what I was reading.
versus some guy.
Which like I definitely get, because well they've been talking about the film, so like it kind of makes sense. So it's kind of nice, just a little nice little detail. One that probably most people won't know about this film as well either. So this was produced by Brooks Films, and Brooks is in Mel Brooks. Has a production company, and he was involved in the production of this as well. Like one of the the famous lines from this movie is "Be afraid, be very afraid," and like that's been used to hell since on so many other horror films. But I believe what I was reading in the trivia is that was one that like I think it was in the script, but like it was either in the script or Mel Brooks just kind of said it at a meeting as part of this movie, and they're like, "Wow!" I think it was in the script, and he's like, "Wow, it's a great tagline." So that became the tagline for it. But like he was heavily involved in this as well. So like it's weird to imagine him being involved in a horror film, because like you just tend to think about him as like a comedic person.
And I can't help but feel like him just telling somebody that line wouldn't come off as just a comedic line. Imagining Mel Brooks delivering it.
No, I mean it wouldn't be comedic, but it still wouldn't be like. I don't think you would take it serious as coming from Mel Brooks. So it's just interesting to know that he was involved in this. So I guess let's talk about the transformation itself.
Yeah, and the transformation. What's cool about it, as compared to like some other movies like American Werewolf in London, where that transformation kind of happens. It's not that transformation happens like
kind of all at once.
All once. Yeah. Now this movie, The Fly, has they kind of liken his transformation to maybe having cancer or a sickness.
Yeah, like kind of like cancer and like aging in general. And that's really the vibe that like Cronenberg was going to. It was like it's kind of like this. I don't want to say metaphor, but like I think that's how he thought about it, was like cancer or aging or like having a disease.
Yeah.
At the time, apparently, like when this came out in '86, that was like the heights of like the AIDS crisis.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people took this transformation as like an allegory for AIDS. But continue to say what you were saying.
So what's cool about this movie though is it's showing the phases.
Yes.
It could very well be like stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 until he's turned into the Fly, and that's where I think it's really, because to me it's not like this movie isn't a horror movie. I don't read it as that. It's
not
like
in general. Like it's a science fiction film. But I mean, there's body horror, which is the main thing.
Yeah, it's kind of unsettling. It's like an unsettling horror movie versus like terror. I don't know what I'm saying about that, but it has the body horror, I guess.
Yeah.
And
although I will say, as far as like the transformation goes, like the gene splicing part of it, that's not actually unsimilar to. And our producer will possibly remember this. There's an episode of Star Trek Next Generation where something happens and like. The different crew members start like reverting to like an earlier stage, and there's like Barkley ends up becoming like half spider at one point, and like Worf is absolutely terrifying. So like it's kind of the kind of body horror is similar-ish to that, but way more so.
Well, yeah, and it starts out subtly. He has these hairs on his back.
Yes,
that grow out, and then it just progresses into worse and worse. What's kind of after that? I mean, he does seem like things are going in a positive direction.
Oh yeah,
like super strength.
The next, well, it was kind of an interesting scene. The next day, like after he does it the first time, like he's just sitting in a chair and starts like doing gymnastics, like lifting himself up and then like swinging around the thing, and like
a pretty interesting sequence there. I mean, obviously had a gymnast go there, and I read that the gymnasts are used to doing their routine once.
Oh, really?
Like the judges, and then they're done. But David Cronenberg needed multiple takes, and so he had the gymnast do it multiple times. And the gymnast, they did it like, so they're not used to doing that same routine like repeatedly
over and over. Yeah,
and so they were absolutely exhausted by the time
I believe it. Like
that was done. But
it looks exhausting.
It was a pretty interesting sequence. The gymnastic stuff.
It's not something you would expect.
Just something that is well, did Goldblum do at least like he's doing like I
He
don't
had to
know
have at least done the stuff in the chair.
the sofa chair thing.
Yeah, that had to have been
He
him.
he does look pretty fit in this movie, so
Yeah.
he wouldn't. It would be interesting if he did one thing, and I don't want to get sidetracked on this, but
Mm-mm.
he's also very good at playing piano, and there's a part where he
Oh
does
yeah, like when he first enters the apartment, like it's also like such a random, like small detail
uh-huh.
that like it's just kind of it feeds into the reality of the film. And
And
I love that he just comes in and starts immediately playing some stuff for before like getting into the main thing.
so it's kind of interesting. Like, oh wow, he's very talented. Um,
Which I mean, in general, he is like he apparently actually like Jeff Goldblum himself apparently has a jazz band, which is fun. I'll just seek out some of his albums if he has any.
I like so we. It's really cool to see the
The transformation,
phases
yeah,
of
yeah,
his
yeah.
transformation.
Because he starts out like really positively, other than like the hairs on the back,
Uh-huh.
and then it just starts degrading from there.
Yeah, it does.
Because like the next big thing I think is like certain like his like fingernails start to
Uh-huh. And what I liked about the at least the fingernail kind of cuts because I think maybe he loses a tooth.
The teeth go later.
The teeth go later. Okay, but he is keeping these body parts.
Oh yeah, in the mirror.
Yeah, he's keeping them as like little pieces of himself.
Like a little like a museum. I think he refers to it as the like the Seth Brundle Museum.
Oh yeah, I
As
think he does say something. I don't remember what he specifically.
Something
I
like
think
that.
you're right,
Yeah.
but I thought that was interesting. He's like keeping his.
I mean,
his self.
He's a scientist, so I can see him like keeping like specimens as of it. That makes sense. But there's so part of this transformation. It's interesting to talk about. There's a scene in which one of his ears just straight up falls off.
Uh-huh.
And apparently in that scene, Gina Davis was not prepared for that and didn't know that was going to happen, or it just happened by accident. Either way, her reaction is genuine
Uh-huh.
in the film, like because it just falls off.
Yeah.
Which is just it's creepy and weird, and it's like, oh god.
Uh-huh.
But so that's there. There is actually a so interestingly there's a deleted scene. There's actually a couple of them, but one of them might not have been filmed. But there's one so further on into his transformation, and this is before like the insect politics talk, I think. He ends up experimenting some more. One of the weird things about this movie is it kind of a slight sidetrack, but it plays into what I'm about to talk about. When he starts experimenting on living things, for some reason he has access to
Baboons.
to baboons, and so he puts one through the teleporter at one point, and it does not go well, and it doesn't live for long. But later on in the film, after he has transformed a bit longer and decides to go, instead of going from, or it's really where his plan switches from teleportation to gene splicing. He has a cat in one telepod and another baboon in another one and tries to fuse them. And it also doesn't go well.
But this is a deleted
This
scene.
is a deleted scene.
I don't think it was filmed then.
No, it was filmed.
what?
You can find the clip on YouTube.
Oh, you can't.
Yes.
Oh, then I can find it. Watch
Yes,
it.
I watched it last week actually after I learned about it. I'm like, oh god. So he does this. So he does this, and it does fuse, but it's not great. It still kind of comes out wrong to the point where he ends up beating it with a rod
Oh god.
to death. And then later after that, I think he ends up like, it's either immediately after this or when like he's up on the roof looking down at John Getz and Gina Davis. It's either there or it's immediately after this scene. But he's up on the roof and like he ends up jumping down. He starts going through another transformation at that moment and like ends up like falling kind of off the roof onto like a dumpster, and like one insect arm starts to like protrude, like starts going through the skin, and like it comes out, and then he ends up like ripping it out of himself and leaving it on the ground.
Oh, nice.
So
Beautiful.
like that was deleted from the film. I don't recall why. There was another scene that they were gonna do in which, so one of the things as well about this film, to add to the gross nature of it, he does this kind of what he calls this vomit drop
Uh-huh.
for apparently flies eat. And there was one scene that was also, I think this one wasn't filmed, where he was supposed to be like out after the scene, and there was like a grocery bag lady coming through, and he was supposed to like vomit drop on her face.
I think I read something about that. It was like he's out and about, like eating people or
I think he was like in a garbage can, or I think he was in the garbage looking, and somebody came by and he did it to her. But that didn't end up being in the film, thankfully. I think it's a better film to not have that.
Mm-hmm.
Should we talk about the ending of the film?
Yeah, let's go ahead and talk about the ending, because this is the part where I do have some kind of memories of a little bit, but that not that matters, but the this is all leading somewhere with his transformations,
Yes.
because he has gotten progressively worse, and there's a point where Gina Davis does go back to his apartment, and he's like, he doesn't want her. I think he doesn't want her to see her or something like that. But or no, he says he does warn her that he might.
This is the insect politic talk. So there's a particular line that he says. It's like, I was an insect who dreamt he was a man, and I loved it. But now the dream is done, and the insect is awake.
Yeah, that was a great line.
It's a brilliant line.
Oh, it was amazing.
And I mean, his delivery is fantastic. And this is the point where like he's lost his teeth as well. Which is also like, it's also shown in like the way he's like saying things. Like it's like he like licks a lot, like, and he's trying like
he's doing a lot of ticks like a fly.
Yeah.
would do. It's very staccato.
Yes.
Staccato moves.
But like, you know, him saying that, it's kind of a warning to her to just get out and to leave him, because he knows that he's losing himself.
Yeah, he's losing his humanity, but there's little traces of it left, but it's going away because he's turning the monster. And again, this is when the makeup is really like in the prosthetics and all that stuff is really it's good that it like he's not quite full fly, but because he's still able to like give a really good performance through all that prosthetics and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's pretty unsettling. And I don't think it really delves on like, the point isn't like bad relationships or like domestic abuse or anything like that, but Jeff Goldblum's character has this like has an arc of he's getting more aggressive and more stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like it's becoming like not cool, like how he's treating people. But so that line that he delivers as a warning, it's like it makes it really hits hard, because it's like, he is a danger. He might kill her, and he's almost a fly.
And he knows it at that point. I mean, and sort of so like she leaves after that point and goes back to John Getz because she's upset, and he ends up following her. And like the insect kind of takes over at that point, and he wants to splice himself. And she also finds out that she's pregnant.
Oh yeah,
which is a major plot point we haven't talked about. So she finds out that she's pregnant, and she desperately wants to get an abortion, and understandably so, because. I mean,
larva baby.
Yeah, which is horrifying. And so, you know, he Brundle at this point, Brundlefly as he calls himself, wants to merge his genes with hers. In theory, in an attempt to make him a little bit more human. So he's trying to kind of get his humanity back at that point, but he's not thinking clearly.
Nope. Yeah, very unsettling part, like putting her in that against her will. Does gene splice? Something about that just really weird.
Oh yeah. Well, and so that leads to the final transformation. And it's really, I was rewatching it this morning, just that scene. And so it kind of kicks off. So like his flesh is essentially rotting on his body is what's happening. And so she ends up like, he's manhandling her, and she like kind of pushes his face away and like accidentally like grips or something, and basically accidentally rips his jaw off.
Yeah.
And so like you see just like his eyes here, and like a really like small detail when the jaw is on the ground, you can still see it moving like he's trying to say something.
Oh, really?
Which is a really just fun minute detail. But like really after that is where it just all starts to like fall off. So like his leg, like his feet go away, or not really go away.
He's like the actual man fly now.
Yeah, which I'll throw a picture on screen of the final transformation. So be warned, just so you know what it looks like. But like you see like the skin around his head like basically falls off, his eyeballs fall out, and like his hand, like it's very grotesque.
This is where you can see the Oscar winningness of Chris Wallace's makeup.
Yeah,
because that was,
he also designed that. Yeah.
It was very well done and all that. So
It's a very imaginative way to to kind of fuse those two things together because it would be very the original Fly that came out in 1958. It wasn't a gene splicing thing. It was just like a body swap.
oh, okay.
So like in the original version, it was the same kind of plot. Vincent Price was the scientist working on teleportation, or I think he called it the reintegrator or disintegrator integrator, which Jeff Goldblum does make a reference to in this film. But in that version, only his head and like left arm are swapped with the Fly, and so like his head is like a giant fly head, and his arm is like a regular it's like a fly, almost like claw looking
Yeah,
thing.
claw thing.
And the giant the Fly has a small white human head and a small white human arm, and so but he still has like his humanity to for a small length of time. So it's very interesting to see this as like a progression and a completely, it's not just a remake. This is a complete kind of like almost reimagining of the story, and I think it does it in such a good way. But so that final transformation, this is when John Getz comes in and tries to become the kind of hero and save her, and unfortunately,
we see some good, this is like a good final 80s creature feature stuff because Mr. Brundlefly is like vomiting on his limbs and you're seeing them dissolve away. This is a really creepy, insane ending to the show.
It really is. And then so the very last part of it, he goes into the telepod, Brundlefly does, and ends up I think Getz shoots out the window or something. So Brundlefly tries to get out and unfortunately is half merged with the machine, which is the final thing, and it's just so sad at that point because he comes out of the other one like the metal is just protruding from him, and he basically begs Gina Davis to shoot him.
But he tells her, she doesn't want to, but he tells her it's okay
in his own Brundlefly way
by putting the barrel to his head.
At that point, I get it. It's he's got to be in so much pain. At that point, I can't imagine. So, to that point, I was looking into the. Here it is. According to David Cronenberg, the basic premise of the film is two lovers, one of whom contracts a disease, and the other who is forced to watch and ultimately helps the sick one commit suicide. And he said that would never have been made as a straight drama, which. Yeah, I can honestly admit that. I mean, nowadays it might be.
It's a topic now about whether assisted suicide should be a thing.
Yeah.
So that's pretty interesting.
So he says, however, as a science fiction genre film, gets more serious dramatic tones, and the realism of the film has what to say was guarded. So he says, if you consider how many people have given themselves their own death sentence in their bathroom by discovering, that thing in the shower or in the bathtub or in the mirror, he says that's where the potency of these scenes really comes from. And that's he's not wrong. Thinking about it from when he was thinking, we mentioned it earlier, he really saw this as kind of like a aging or disease thing, and so that kind of hits hard. So it's hard to say if this had been made in any other genre if it had really worked.
Yeah. So the story's kind of simple in terms of the plot and stuff, but there's really good themes of that throughout that I think make this movie really strong. And I wish I had watched it more with the other 80s movies that I had watched, because I think this is every bit as good as some of those.
Yeah, I would agree.
Great performances from Jeff Goldblum and Gina Davis, who were dating at the time.
Oh, were
this
they?
movie. Yeah, they were. Gina Davis would sit next to Jeff Goldblum when I was getting his makeup done, which was like a 4-hour process.
Yeah, 4 or 5,
She would talk to him, sing to him, or whatever Gina Davis do. Well, so what do you think? Should we move on to our review? Give this I
think we should give this a rating.
Let's give this a rating. So, we do have our rating system. We have avoid, meh, solid, great, or superb is our top rating that we can give a movie. Tim, what would you rate this film, The Fly?
It's really it's definitely in top tier for me. I think I'm gonna put this in superb.
Okay. Why?
I'm incredibly impressed by the visual effects. I think we talked about the makeup. I think it looks fantastic. I think it's incredibly imaginative. It is it's very easy to follow the story, which I think is, we've talked about it as well, complexity of certain films and certain plot lines. Not every film needs to have like 17 different twists. Like this really does a good job of just, it's this small contained little story, and you're there for that, and it's every bit as horrifying as it is, but I think it's well worth um, watching. And I think, so that transformation, I think Jeff Goldblum does a fantastic job as both personalities, or as the character is progressing. Gina Davis, I think, provides a very memorable performance as her character. And one thing we didn't talk about is the music. I think the music adds a lot to the film. Like in certain scenes, I mean, it's not like over the top necessarily. Like it doesn't necessarily add a whole lot, but it makes a difference what's there. And interestingly, the music is done by Howard Shore.
Yeah.
Who is, Gus looked up at me as soon as he heard that. So and for those who know who Howard Shore is, he's the one who did all the composition and the music for the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And Peter Jackson actually hired him for that because of this. So there's a scene like the scene where Sam is fighting Shelob. Peter Jackson saw that as like a mini horror film within the franchise.
Yeah.
And so like specifically in that, as well as another scene, there's supposed to be kind of similar tones and like use of instrumentation to what's used in this film. And so I think that speaks as well to just how good this film is. And I think this is a film that if you're interested in science fiction and you don't mind some body horror in there, just as a film in general, I think it's really worth watching. And it is, by the way, included on the 1001 movies you should see before you die.
Oh, nice.
Which is a lot of movies, but
we've seen it now, so we
have
the list's permission to die.
Yes, we do. So I think, I mean, if not totally at superb, it's definitely between great and superb for me. I think this movie is fantastic, and it absolutely deserves a watch. How do you feel?
Yeah, I think I'm going to give it a superb too, but I probably would put it between great and superb. But at the same time, I don't know what I need more out of this movie. But I mean, because the story is it's pretty straightforward. It doesn't, but that's kind of, I think, to its benefit. We don't get into some extra stuff or dwindle on some things or something. It's the length of this film is the right length for the story it's telling.
It's about an hour and a half,
and it hits on the themes it has, and it sticks to it, and it does not go outside of that. But I really like this movie. It's a great 80s creature horror kind of movie.
Yeah.
I did like the special effects and the makeup and those other effects that you see in this kind of movie, because I like these kinds of movies like The Thing and Terminator 2. Total Recall has some of that stuff. There's just a charm. There's a charm to those kinds of movies, and The Fly it's every bit as good as like Aliens, and well, maybe not as good as Aliens for me, but it's it's a
different style of movie.
It's a pretty good movie. Even the poster kind of has some Aliens vibes to it to me.
I could see that.
But I like Jeff Goldblum. This is a perfect movie for Jeff Goldblum.
It really is.
Who he is as his personality.
I honestly can't picture another person doing that role.
You would expect a scientist to have some kind of quirks, and he just kind of like has them. And he brought a lot of cool things to the role, because there's a scene where he's talking to Gina Davis in a diner, and he's putting sugar in his coffee.
Oh,
and
yeah.
he keeps doing that. But I guess he kind of like ad-libbed a lot of the extra, some of his dialogue in that. It wasn't all to the script. He was just riffing, so he could just keep up the manicness of his character.
Oh, that's cool.
But so there's a lot of stuff he brought to it, and he really had to sell. The makeup could only do so much. He had to like sell it through it, and he brought some of the little ticks of being a fly and some of the little mannerisms and stuff. So it was pretty cool. And of course, Gina Davis is always great. She can do no wrong.
It's true.
So this is a great 80s movie, and I wish I watched it more when I was younger, because I think it would have been more. It would hit better with maybe more nostalgia for me. But yeah, this is a really great movie, and I liked that we got to watch it from beginning.
So I'm curious, given that what I know about your partner, she likes horror films. Is this one that you think she would like?
She probably would like it more than Scanners. But yeah, probably. It especially since it's 90 minutes long, you don't have to dwell on something so
Yeah,
long.
that's
But
true.
yeah, I don't see why not. It's really not that scary, but
No, I don't think it is either. It's shocking, but it's not really scary.
yeah. So I think with the themes that they have, it's more of a thoughtful movie than just, I don't know, horror
Yeah,
where disgusting things
I
happen.
completely agree. I do want to talk very briefly about the sequel. So I know you haven't seen it, and I don't want to necessarily spoil anything for you.
And the more you like this movie, I do feel like it not doesn't necessarily set up a sequel, but I think the groundwork is there for something
Oh yeah,
interesting, and it feels like that doesn't actually happen because actors don't return,
hmm
but it's unfortunate. But I feel like since Gina Davis's character was pregnant, they could have there was something there, and maybe she could have been a Sigourney Weaver type, like the next movie sees. She's I don't know.
Well, it's like her
something
character is there. She didn't want to return.
Like there was something more to her character that could have been developed
For the sequel.
for the
Yeah.
sequel. But
No, I do agree with that. So that is kind of a downside to the sequel. I will say in general, if you do watch the sequel, I know we've watched like the opening together, but I watched the rest of it on my own. Expect a transformation. And interestingly, so Cronenberg did not return for the sequel. He was either working on something else at the time or just didn't want to. So Chris Wallace or Wallace, who did the makeup for the first movie, directed the sequel.
yeah,
And he also does the final transformation and the transformation in general for that film. The final transformation in that one looks really interesting. I think it looks really cool. I think Eric Stoltz does a pretty good job of, in general, as his character, as like the transformation is happening, because for him it is just a thing of life. Like it's literally been in him since he was born. This potential change, and he ages incredibly rapidly through the film. So like when you get kind of into like young adulthood is when like the real transformation starts, and just kind of seeing what happens to him. And there's a point where he like starts actually cocooning himself.
yeah.
And I just think the design of all those are really, really interesting. There are things about it that I don't love. In particular, there's like a romantic subplot, which is fine. I have no problem with that. But like, there's a choice that they make in one scene that's like this little montage thing that.
So it sounds like maybe not the best movie, but it has some good creature design effects.
Yeah, I would say so.
Are worth kind of sticking around for.
I think those parts are worth sticking around for. I do think Eric Stoltz's performance is pretty solid, and I will say, I feel like the ending is satisfying.
Oh, good.
It's very satisfying with what happens. There is one scene that will emotionally like just rip your heart out.
Oh, wow.
So like it has that like. Is it a great film? No. I do as far as
Is
like
it a film? Yes.
it is in fact a film. No, like if I were to do it on our scale, I would put it at probably solid. Because like I think it is. It's a solid film. It does kind of what it sets out to do.
It's a solid fly movie.
It is. That's right. It sets out to kind of do what it does, but I think there are things that could have been done better. But I don't think it's terrible. Like I think if you watch The Fly and you really like it, it's an okay follow up.
It's good for a little bugger.
I appreciate your punning.
I'm trying really hard. Well, I'll try not to let that one fly by me. And
I love it so much right now. I really do. My brain is not working fast
I'm
enough.
surprised that you were able to watch it because usually these fly movies only are around for like 3 days before they.
Yeah, they only last for like a week until they have to create new little ones, and they're born from that. Oh man, you're on a roll. My brain is not moving fast enough today to be on your level. I'll just have to be a fly on the wall and observe you.
That's yep. Maybe I'll check out the movie.
Both are available on HBO Max currently, or I guess it's just called Max now. But they're probably available elsewhere. But as far as like the The Fly that we were reviewing today, I would say watch it.
Well, sounds good. I think we'll take your advice. And I think that does it for the time we have for today in our podcast.
I think so.
But we will be back next week with another episode. I don't know what we're going to review yet, but it's going to be amazing. And then we'll have Memorial Day weekend as next week.
Yes.
But we will look forward to seeing you guys again and to watch and listen to more Nerds Now Playing.
That's right. See you around.